You know, there's a lot of noise. I'm going to use the term noise quite a few times here, but follow me on this. Remember all the noise, social media noise, talk space noise, the ranting, the raging about the Algerian boxer in the Olympics, female boxer. Notice how much space, time and space, minutes, not just minutes, hours spent in my talk space about transgendered athletes and women's sports and girls' sports. By the way, I'm not in favor of men competing against girls, just to get that out of the way, but it doesn't really happen. But you notice how much time and energy and noise is spent on that. And usually the argument, at least when the governor of Texas was doing some sort of legislative ceremonial signing surrounded by parents and teachers and coaches and stuff like that, the issue is safety. We're told all the time, we've got to be worried about women's sports and safety and safety and safety. That's what a lot of the energy is. And, man, it's a lot of noise. No matter what you think, it's a lot of noise. You have to admit there is. You don't hear very often about football players dying of concussions. There's not that much noise. In fact, I would challenge you right now, if you could do a compare and contrast and maybe just, your own experience, your own media habits. I want you to compare the amount. I can do it easily, but I'm in the space. Compare the amount of energy, the amount of opinions, the amount of ranting, the amount of raging, arguing that was spent on an Algerian female boxer in the Olympics. Okay? The topic in general, transgendered athletes in women's sports. I want you to compare all that conversation, all that noise, all of those opinions. Compare it against the two stories I'm going to talk about. Just compare the two. What do you think is going on? Okay, so I'll give you two stories. These have happened now within 5 days. First up, Alabama high school football player dies of brain injury during game. A high school quarterback died after he was tackled and hit his head during a game in Alabama. Caden Tellier was 16. He was injured during the third quarter. The coroner, William Daly, tells NBC News. Both of these stories are from NBC News. He went down, this is a quote, he went down, hit his head on the ground. Tellier started staggering toward the sideline, and his trainers administered concussion protocol. He threw up, went unresponsive, and was never able to speak again, the coroner said. Preliminary finding is that the internal bleeding in the brain caused by the tackle and the fall. It's written by NBC News. It's the latest in a string of deaths involving high school football players. A West High School player also died from a head injury. There's a few of them listed there. And then, sadly, today, if you follow the news, again, I'm asking you to compare the amount of noise, the amount of discussion, the amount of debate. I'm not even saying you have to have one side or the other on the debate, but just notice what little debate there is about these guys dying. But, man, I tell you what, you even float the rumor. You float the untruth. You float the made-up story about transgendered athletes in my space. Our hair is on fire for the next 6 days. We fought for 3 days about an Algerian female boxer. How much discussion, how much ranting is there going to be about these guys dying? And they won't be the last. I'm sorry. This won't be the last. Season just started. We now have 2 deaths of kids between the ages of 14 and 16 in 4 days. This is from the New York Times. This is Cohen Craddock, is a football player in West Virginia. He suffered a head injury in practice. He's a defensive lineman at Madison Middle School. He was injured while making a tackle. He had just started the 8th grade 3 days earlier. And his father, by the way, is, to his credit, is out pushing for, this is interesting, pushing for these protective helmets The father tells NBC News, I think with the Guardian cap, these are these softer things that go on, they're shells that go on top of a helmet. He says, I think with the Guardian cap, it would have been a little bit of a different outcome. I would at least like to protect any and all other kids I can, starting at the county level. If I can move it onto the state or national level to push for these kids to start wearing Guardian caps, at least in practice, or however far they want to take it. I want to take the loss of my son to try to protect other guys. I don't want anyone else to go through what we're going through currently. And it's a terrible story. I'm just telling you, is there a lot of debate about this stuff? A lot of talk about high school football, junior high football, Guardian caps, or maybe not even doing it at all? Because, man, I know this. When the fake stories come up about transgendered athletes, we are raging. For all the safety talk, and that's fine, for all the safety talk, how many times have you heard in the state of Texas, for example, at the governor's office, how many times have you heard about safety conversations in high school football? A lot. This will happen to someone else. This is going to happen again. Now you're going to say, well, Jeff, but a lot of people play. It's true. It's rare. It's a rare occurrence. These are the guys that die. What is going to happen a lot, and this hasn't changed, what is going to happen a lot is there are going to be players suffering from concussions. I can tell you this from experience. And even if you say, but Jeff, you can get concussions playing soccer too. That's true. I can tell you this from experience, waking up in a hospital one time. Do you remember the neurologist saying, we don't know, and this is a while back, knocked out, dead to the world, blacked out, the whole bit, just waking up in a hospital. And, I mean, it will, I'll pay the price one day. And he said, we don't know ultimately what this will cause, but we do know you will start getting them more often. I believe when I came to, this was even a couple days later, somebody saying it's like spraining your ankle. It will start to happen more often with each blow to the head. So, unfortunately, there'll be more players that will probably die. There'll be plenty that you won't know about, no one will know about, that will be suffering, and then they will come more often. That's what will happen. I'm not sitting here saying you want to get rid of football. What I am saying is notice how worked up we get over a fake issue in the terms of safety. And here's a real one. It's right in your face in every way, in every town. So what do you want to do? How do you want to react to me saying there's just not enough noise? There's not enough noise. So why not more noise? You can weigh in on that too. Why don't you think there's more noise? And I think we deserve some of the blame for that, and sort of naturally we don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear any of these stories. We'd much rather rant about an Algerian female boxer who's somebody told you is a guy, and it's not. But I think there's a few things in play here. One, it is true. Coaches and trainers are doing seriously all they can. They're doing all they can. They're watching, they're trying to protect, but the fact of the matter is every time this comes up, which is rare, we talk far more about transgendered athletes than we do concussions and the damage done to your average kid. I'm not talking about your NFL players. These are average kids, a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old dead. But we talk about it, we rarely talk about it, but they try. The problem is, and I've said this many, many times, there's not much you can do when people are running into each other. I mean, it's the nature of the sport. You keep running into each other. You keep running head on into each other. Your head keeps getting slammed to the ground. It will end badly. Not it might, it will. It will. There's only so much you can do when people are crashing into each other at any age, by the way. Probably more so at their age, 14, 15, and 16. But so you can't, there's no reason to blame, I don't think, blame schools. The issue that this father is bringing up about the caps, the shells, the soft, squishy shells, which a lot of colleges and pros wear because they have unlimited budgets. I mean, I'm sorry, but One, I don't think a lot of school districts could afford this, all of these soft shell helmets. Two, not every parent could afford them, these soft shell helmets. I mean, exactly, how out of whack would our priorities be getting? So I don't know that it's completely possible that you could expect every middle school, every high school to have enough money to have these soft shell Guardian caps. It would be nice. It would help. Yes, it's not gonna stop it entirely. It's not. I mean, think about now with all the awareness that we have. You've got 2 kids dead within 4 days, and more will probably happen. So why don't we pay attention? One, I don't think we want to. We certainly. And the NFL doesn't want us to, all the way down, really doesn't want us to. The NFL settled a lawsuit, and the goal of settling the lawsuit was to get this story, former players suffering the effects of concussions, out of the news. The NFL knew you did not want to see your heroes drooling on themselves. They did not want you to see or hear how these guys can hardly function, which, by the way, is very true. Very true. The suicide rates are ridiculous. All this stuff, all the medical information is right out there. The NFL doesn't want us to see it. The NFL doesn't want us to talk about it. And they settled a lawsuit and did all they could successfully to sort of take the issue, the topic of the day, and remove it altogether. And I think it's worked. I don't think you want to hear about it right now. I think you'd far rather argue and scream about transgendered athletes than this. So I think the NFL's goal of getting it out of the way has been successful. The other part is we don't want to hear it. Right? We don't want anything. We don't even think of the game this way when we watch it on TV. We don't even think of the game unless you've ever been, I mentioned many times, I grew up on an NFL field. My father was an NFL referee. And you have no idea what it sounds like. You have no idea. You would, if you closed your eyes, you would freak out and say, I want to get out of here. It sounds so violent, and it is. But we're completely removed from that. We don't know what it's like. We don't even know what the sound is like. And, I mean, people can't even appreciate these 2 kids that just died. Exactly, what that would be like. I mean, how bad could it be? Obviously bad enough. So I don't think we want to hear it. We don't want to know about it because we're into fantasy, we're into gambling. And so we're into the stats. I'm not sure we're that connected to how violent the sport really is. But our concern should not be the NFL. Our concern should be these middle school and high school kids that have died, and more to come. And I don't think, I think politically and in the media space, it's just so ugly, so awful, and we all enjoy the game and talking about it. We don't really want to do the buzzkill thing and talk about something like this. It is far easier and far more digestible to talk about transgendered athletes, betting lines, and all that stuff. This is not something anybody wants to hear. Most people haven't even read it. So I think it's just sort of natural that we've removed it from the conversation entirely. Do I think the game goes away? No. Remember, this came up a few years ago about the time the movie came out about the physician. I think it was Will Smith that played the doctor, about how the information was being suppressed about the damage being done by concussions. Now, I know a lot of you would say, well, people are doing it knowing the risks. I would dare say the 13 and 14-year-old kids and their families didn't sign up for football thinking they might die. You can remove the NFL players from the conversation. This is all about junior high and high school. I don't think they think dying is a risk. I don't think their parents do. And it's a low risk. It's an issue. The issue that keeps going that nobody really wants to talk about, nobody really wants to address, and there's never, ever, ever going to be a meeting at the Capitol about concussions, is what happens when they start to build up. It's what happens to a guy, not when he's 14, it's what's happening to him when he's 35 or 40. That safety issue we would not talk about at the Capitol. The fake issues we'll talk about all day long. This is one we want no part of.